Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Well, today I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the present day dystopia. We all complain about it. There's so much tracking. Facebook is logging everything. Google's logging everything. Of course, it's only crazy people like me that are telling you about this. But the information is out there in public. I don't use crazy conspiracy theories. I actually use real reports. And with this, I did want to, though, turn this over and using some articles that Jeff sent me. Um, yeah, we did this to ourselves. And that's the thing. So, if you guys remember back a decade ago, and there will be an outdoor philosophy on my other channel tomorrow on kind of a little bit more delving into this trend, but about a decade ago, think back to yourself if you're old enough to be over, if you were an adult a decade ago, we'll put it that way. If you were an adult a decade ago, think back to your life. How was it? Was it horrible? Was it them good old days? I remember Dennis Waitley's speech one time. He talks about the good old days is when we had to worry about getting polio and, we only had one wash basin and you can only fill it with water once and you were the 12th in line and your uncle was a pig farmer. Good luck. Those were the good old days. But if you think back 10 years ago, the good old days of tech, now, there were some inconveniences. We had a separate digital camera. We might have a separate car GPS, maybe a separate field GPS, maybe, you know, all these different devices and tools that we had. We couldn't check our emails on the go. We didn't have quite as ready ability to communicate quite quickly. But a thing happened in the tens. It was around 2010 to 2012 is really when these trends occurred. The first is the wide availability of broadband internet. Prior to this, I mean, we had a lot of connectivity to the internet, but a lot of people were still on dial-ups. You'd go to work. In fact, I remember in grad school. So this is going back into the earlier 2000s. I eventually just said, you know what? I don't need internet at home because I spend so much time at work, and we got T1 lines at work, T1/T3. I worked at Penn State University. We had a lot of internet connectivity over there, and I was literally, yeah, I can go over, I can check my online bank accounts there. I can check all my online stuff over there. No big deal. So I could do all that. And it wasn't until a few years later when I was like, you know what? Internet's come a long way. The price is good enough. I can afford it now. I mean, I was a starving grad student. What do you want? And at that time, though, I finally put up internet. And I was one of the early, it was like an early adoption of having internet, like fast, high-speed internet coming into your house. It was probably like 5 Mbps. That's probably what it was. Fast internet, man. And then I had a network, I had a router and, wow, this is cool. And that was a decade ago. Like that was closer to 15 years ago. But about 10 years ago, broadband internet became more mainstreamed. We also had social media. Prior to social media, prior to Facebook, really. I mean, MySpace was kind of there, but really Facebook is the one that did this. Prior to that, were online mostly anonymous. We never really used our names. We very, very rarely would put any personal information out there. Now, after Facebook, we give it all up. We just push it all out there. We push it all out there. And then the next factor is the proliferation of these small smart devices. This is when iPhones, iPads, tablets, Android tablets, these things were all starting to come down in price and becoming mainstream. I remember when this occurred, I started to see people, nobody brought their Bibles to church anymore. Everyone brings their iPads or their Android tablets, and we had our U version or our Bible Gateway apps to do our different things at church. Like, this is so cool, man. I have every single translation of the Bible ever right here. And the problem is we would sit there playing, Candy Crush wasn't a thing yet. Mega Jump, we play Mega Jump. We play, and so, what happened is those convergence of three things made us go full force into this. Now, I'm going to stop and do a small parenthetical here because there are some people that argue, well, privacy's dead online. It doesn't really matter. That is complete and utter garbage. That is not a valid argument. You may as well raise up the white flag of surrender because it is not about the fact that your name is on the internet. It's about the day-to-day things that you do. That's the danger that we have here. So maybe it's not a parenthetical. But the point is that we're not talking about, yes, my phone number might be on the internet somewhere. My name might be on the internet somewhere. obviously. What we're talking about is the dangers of the day-to-day tracking. This is why I do not recommend using Google services for everything that you do. Yes, of course, you're probably watching this on YouTube, although you might be watching it on BitChute at Switch to Linux. But, just because you have a Google account doesn't mean you have to put everything into it. Just because you have a Google account doesn't mean you stay perpetually signed into it. Okay? We want to prevent these companies from tracking anything and everything that we are doing. Not as a one point in time. This is not a one point in time your data's out there. This is a how they track you progressively. This is not a static thing. It is a dynamic thing. And when you understand it's about dynamic privacy, not static privacy, then you can understand the importance of not carrying around a cell phone that's attached to anything and everything. You can understand the importance of taking some privacy. You can understand the importance of accepting a little bit of inconvenience to maintain the integrity of your life. And that's what I want to talk about. So the first article here, and Jeff sent those both out to me, so thank you. The decade of tech turned dystopian. We are complicit in the corporate surveillance state we inhabit. Our present dystopia is our fault. Now, everyone talks about 1984. Places like China and North Korea are 1984. The rest of us in the West, we have just as much tracking, we have just as much of the stuff, but it's not 1984. We have to stop saying that. We, in the West, are Brave New World. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. The impositions on ourselves were adopted by ourselves. It was our own pleasure. It was our own addictions, our own seeking out our own pleasure that caused us to get into this place. We are not 1984. We are Brave New World. Now, there is another fabulous book that you should read, and it is called Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman, where he actually does the analysis looking at 1984 versus Brave New World versus where we are. And by the way, the book was written in the 80s. And it is prophetic to this day. Not pathetic, prophetic. It is fascinating because we are completely complicit in the technology. As we have adopted everything, now the rest of us must. Or it's not we must adopt it or be left behind. It's we must adopt it. We have no choice. And that's the danger. In Bloomberg, this is the decade we gave away our privacy. We took silly personality quizzes on Facebook that made Cambridge Analytica possible. We bought phones that tracked our locations everywhere we went. We plugged in smart speakers that send recordings of our most intimate moments to humans overseas for transcription. We downloaded apps and plugins with reckless abandon. We installed security cameras everywhere, and we clicked through the terms of service without reading. We agreed to do whatever it took to make those pesky red badges on our phone go away. We are complicit in the corporate surveillance state we inhabit. That is a fascinating beginning of this article, which I'm not actually going to read here. I will have it in the description if I remember. If not, you can find it. The Decade Tech Turned Dystopian by Bloomberg. You can find that pretty easy. I don't know if I really need a link to that. But anyway, so they go on to say that, that just doesn't mean we weren't duped into it. Sure, they gave us all these carrots. They dangled carrot after carrot after carrot. And if this carrot didn't work, that carrot probably did. And so this is really the fact of the matter is that we have adopted it. Now, do we completely and forget about it all? No. We have to choose which services we use and choose which services we don't, and choose the circumstances by which we will use certain services. All right. So with that, obviously, yes, you're probably watching this on YouTube, although you might be on BitChute. You might be somewhere else watching the video. You might be on that, Chinese or Russian scraping site that scrapes all the videos off, and there's nothing any of us can do about it anyway. In that case, ciao. Hi. So, but you say, and it's a big criticism. You see it in the comments. Well, you're on YouTube. Yeah, but here's the difference. I have one dedicated computer that's logged into YouTube. I don't use it for anything else. I do not stay logged into accounts. Google has no idea what I'm purchasing day to day because I'm not logged into accounts. I'm not using Gmail to send my receipts there. Okay, ever notice going to Lowe's and Best Buy nowadays? Oh, would you like us to email you your receipt? No, I want you to not have my email at all. Thank you very much. Give me a print one. That's perfectly sufficient. All right. But the fact of the matter is, while yes, we are doing this on YouTube primarily, and the reason is because this is where the eyeballs are. This is where the revolution must start, where the people can get the information. And that's so critically important. So with all of this, I loved what this article did. And this article goes through. Now, they link back to this New York Times article, which was, well, this article is fascinating. The other one is flat out terrifying. Definitely read through this. But I want to look at this. This is an opinion article from the Times. These are the actual locations of for millions of Americans at the New York Stock Exchange and at the beachfront neighborhoods in Los Angeles and in the secure facilities like the Pentagon and in the White House and at a Mar-a-Lago, President Trump's beach resort. Okay. One Nation tracked an investigation from the smartphone tracking. Now, the argument is that, oh, this is just anonymous data. And the fact of the matter is, though, that it is so easy to de-anonymize it. If you are tracking an individual point, and you can say, you can track this one phone by a tracker ID, and you track it, and it always spends its evenings in one location, and its days in another location. Evenings in one location, days in another location. You now know probably where that person works, and you can probably figure out who they are. Figure out who they are. Now you know where they are, where their home is. You can even tell with this devices what corner of the house their bedroom is in. You can tell from the movement of the devices when you wake up in the morning, when you go to sleep at night. You can tell if you're awake or asleep. It kind of goes through. Now, there is a lot of data here. We're not going to go through all this. I want you as homework to pull this up from the New York Times and read it. It is a fascinating read. So what they did is they actually went through and they found a few individuals. Now, they were basically just randomly picked a few points and tracked down everybody. They only included comments from people who agreed to have their comments posted. Some of them were in the tech sectors, some of them in the high security government sectors, some of them in the privacy sectors. So they do have a guide here. We're going to look at that, but they kind of look at, and there's a whole lot of here. So this is basically they're doing, this is a diary of your every movement because we keep our phones in our pockets for the most part. 10,000 or more smartphones tracked in Central Park. And by the way, this is data just from companies you've never heard of before. Here's one smartphone isolated from the crowd. Here are all the pings from that one single smartphone over the day. Connecting those pings reveals a diary of a person's life. With how much traveling this guy does, I bet he's a delivery man. This is the pizza delivery guy. I'm telling you. If any other human travels this much, wow. All right. So they didn't specify, but they kind of go through. They discuss this lady here. She provided some comments for the article. Again, we're not going to go through all these. I just want to look at some of these. So this is a senior Defense Department individual and his wife identified at a women's march. Ooh, look at the women's march. She goes. She skipped. See that? Look at that. This is where the parade low's going. She skipped, man. She cut. She's a cheater. That's crazy. These are a selection of the companies grabbing this data. Let me know in the comments if you've actually heard of any of these companies before. Foursquare. I always thought it was really stupid to run around with an app on your phone and, oh, I'm going to check into store, Foursquare. That's the only one of this list that I have actually seen prior to reading this article. Frightening. Why do we not have laws to prevent these companies from doing this? Beverly Hills, California. Of course, everything can be hacked. It's one thing to have the data, but we don't hear enough in the articles about the rogue employees who simply have access to this data. What we don't hear about as much, we hear a lot about the hacking. Okay, the hacking is certainly a big deal, but the individual employees. This guy here was worried because the app was identifying that he worked. I think he worked at Google, and he started going over and talking to Amazon, and he switched working for Amazon. They were able to track down the time of his interviews, things like that. Downtown San Francisco, the Holy Grail for marketers. Yes. So the Holy Grail for marketers is about utilizing this data for all these different things. If you've seen Minority Report, right? He's walking down and his eyes are scanning everything and they're giving locations. Well, did you guys know that Yahoo had a patent for that type of thing? Only instead of using your eye retina, it used the location data and the other information on your phone to serve a targeted ad to you as you were driving down the road. The idea is that there was a billboard with a scrolling text. There's some relay stations that track who's coming on down the road, and then they do an analytics. So there's 5 people in the car. Whoever is the most susceptible to marketing based upon their data will be shown a relevant ad based on where they go, where they are, and the things that they do. Yahoo had a patent for this. A lot of people criticize Verizon for buying Yahoo. It's like, why would you buy that? There's one reason why. Patents. You buy a company to get its patents. And I believe that Verizon wanted to have that among other patents that they had. This technology is out there. We have to be careful. Now, I want to go back up. I think we're not going to go through all of these, but I do want to look at the protect yourself one, because this is some stuff on your phone. Now, I did some security and privacy, more of a privacy series recently. That has a lot of this kind of stuff in there, and I'll go ahead and link that there in the comments. But that is a neat series. Now, the Hated One is actually starting a series similar to that as well, so you can have a look at the Hated One's channel. He just dropped one. I think his is more focusing on security, not privacy, if I remember correctly. But have a look at his videos. I watched it yesterday. I just can't remember exactly what his exact focus was. But they have here 3 steps to protect your phone. Number 1 is you stop sharing location with your apps. Okay, so if I were to look at my phone, I believe I have one app is allowed to see location when it's turned on, and that is OSM and. There's no other reason anything else on my phone needs to have a map. That one, hey, it's a map. I kind of wanted to know where I am when I need that function, really. But I keep location services completely turned off. Never run location services. Do not use location services unless you absolutely have to. Now, I did get enough feedback into maybe set up that Nextcloud phone tracking, and I might actually do that, where I'll set up the app to see if I can have Nextcloud track one of my devices. I'll see if I can do that. So stop sharing location. They have instructions here on this for iPhone and for Android. Of course, on Lineage, it's going to be similar to Android. Of course, I've gone through there and I've made sure that nothing has access to pretty much anything. And then Lineage has, I don't think Android does, but Lineage has a thing called Privacy Guard, where any new apps do not have. So on Android, when you install an app, it automatically gets all permissions on the phone. You have to know to go into there and turn them all off. Privacy Guard on Lineage makes it so that every time an app is installed, it has no permissions until you go and explicitly set it. So that's definitely a cool feature of running Lineage. Disable the mobile ID. So settings, Google Ads. I think this is this also on an Android device? Yeah, okay, they're doing it here on an Android device as well. So go into settings, find your Google settings, turn it off. Of course, I'm using Lineage. I don't have Google settings. Yeah, get that. 3, prevent Google from storing your location. Of course, this is like, you're going to trust them. I'm going to trust Google to do that. I thought that said 3, and I thought that said 3 things. But we're already having number 4. Number 4, understand location tracking is hard to avoid. So Another way that you can be tracked is with if your Wi-Fi is on and always scanning. So this is one of the things that the hated one said in there that I am not as good at, and I should be, is disabling wireless and Bluetooth when you leave. Now, Bluetooth I generally do leave disabled unless I'm making a call and need my Bluetooth headset. I don't really use Bluetooth for anything else. But I'm really bad about leaving Wi-Fi turned on, and I don't know why. I don't connect to anything else. But at least you can go in there and disable the setting on your Wi-Fi to have it stop searching for open access accounts. Because what happened in both Apple and in Android, they wanted to get as much data as possible, and one of the ways that they were doing that is by setting your phone so that it would automatically attempt to connect to open networks, which open networks are the last networks you ever want to connect with. It's the stupidest thing in the world, but they did. So that's kind of where I want to leave this. The fact of the matter is, all of this tracking is our fault because the things that we have allowed them to do this. But I'm encouraging you in 2020 to take back your privacy. It's not. There's people that will say, and they're friends of mine who say, it doesn't matter. It's all out there anyway. No, it's not. Stop saying that. Stop saying that. It is not about your name being on the internet. It is about the day-to-day things you do. That is what you need to control. That is what you need to control. So we'll leave it here with this. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments down below.